Hello, welcome to HyperDoc Hangouts on Air. We have all three of us here today hosting Hangouts on Air. It's summertime for many people out there. School's been out in the last couple of weeks for many students and teachers celebrating. For us, we have a couple more days here. We have Lisa Highfill, Sarah Landis, and Kelly Hilton here to interview a very special teacher who came in on her summer break with a special student to talk about HyperDocs today. So we want to introduce to you Lisa Guardino, and she is a middle school teacher, English teacher, and Tch TOSA, and she has lots to share with us today. Welcome, Lisa. She's here with her student, Emily Delina, and we're really excited to have both of them here. Emily is been a student of Lisa's for the last 2 years, and is going into high school next year. So welcome, Emily, as well. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
Before we let you guys start sharing your HyperDoc story, we just wanted to talk a little bit about, Lisa wrote a blog about HyperDocs and how they've changed her classroom. So Lisa Highfill here is just gonna read a little bit about from the blog so you can understand where we're coming from.
So Lisa wrote, teaching today is much different than it was 20 years ago. The resources and tools at our disposal are mind-blowing. With these tools comes the responsibility to teach students how to use them respectfully and how to employ the tools effectively. While these tools have changed how I teach, the core has not changed. I still need to be a master lesson planner. I need to consider the goal of the lesson and carefully piece together the components to ensure that my students will get there. There are several the hallmarks of a well-crafted 21st century lesson: technology integration, critical thinking, soft skills, authenticity. HyperDocs provide an avenue to weave all these pieces into one digital lesson or unit.
Wow, thank you so much, Lisa, for writing that. It's just, your words resonate with us, and so we just wanted to include that today. Lisa, can you start by telling us a little bit about how you heard about HyperDocs and how you've been working them in your classroom and how it's changed your classroom?
Sure. So last summer I went to a Google Summit, and really two important things happened. The first is I went to a HyperDocs workshop with Lisa, and just very clearly she pointed out how HyperDocs could and the lesson design behind that could help students control the pace of their learning, how you could package a lesson so that there could be this archived collaboration and academic discourse, how you could, I had been flipping my classroom a little bit, but the links were kind of everywhere, and so how those resources and other resources could be put in this one place for students to go back to, and they could control what they needed to watch, when they needed to watch it. And then there was some autonomy in how students produced and responded to whatever unit. So that was huge. And interestingly enough, even though I can barely do arithmetic anymore, the first thing I thought of was like a fraction unit. And I thought, wow, how powerful for students to have all of this coupled with Google Classroom to be able to go back and see video tutorials and students' thoughts, and maybe even add their own thoughts, either with a video or with just words, and then have all of these pieces and have this archived collaboration where students were responding. So that was kind of the first piece of the puzzle. But then the second piece was this HyperDoc community that started. And that wouldn't have happened without Ben Cogswell. I ended up in a boot camp, and if you don't follow Ben Cogswell, that should be like the first thing you do today. He has got this unparalleled energy and generosity about him. And although our presenter was awesome, he said, hey guys, we all need to start following one another. And I was literally that old lady. I had been on Twitter like from 2012, but I gave up on it. And so I'm like trying to find my password, and I hear people in the background saying, oh, wow, that's a great blog, and this is a great resource. And I'm like dying because I'm not participating in this. But soon enough, I found my password, and he had invited and created this community that, coupled with Lisa's workshop and the teachers community and all of the people that came with that, I was just blown away, really, about, and sometimes even a little bit emotional about the capacity and the generosity that people would share on Twitter over the coming months. And so I think that is a huge part of it. It's not just the lesson design, but the ability to share and the ability to build upon that. And so a couple months into it, I had been following Rocky Logue. He was one of the first interview I think you did. And I had built a few HyperDocs, and I had shared a few in this year I had a different position. I was teaching technology instead of English. And so it was a little bit different, but I was still trying these lesson plans out. And he threw out there this Japan HyperDoc. So if you guys want to show that.
Absolutely.
It like blew my mind because there were so many things on there. First of all, it's just literally absolutely gorgeous to look at. And then he included a podcast, which I had never really thought or considered before. And I quickly started looking about how I could include that. And then he included this whole mapping experience right there. You students didn't have to go out, which is how I had been creating mine. Students were going out on another link. It was all right there. And then this was the page that like just killed me. For 2 days, I don't think I slept. I was trying to figure out these boxes, and I was sure it was some sort of form or something. And I was up, I think, at 3 o'clock in the morning one time trying to Google like how to make these boxes. And it was actually Lisa Highfill. I finally was brave enough to tweet him and said, hey, you know, what is this? And Lisa said, it's just a text box. And I was thinking, wow, you know, I've been having students journal. I had been having them respond, but there is a, in the folder that I'm sharing, there is a research report on writing to read. And one of the core findings is that we really need to increase in all subject areas the amount that students are writing. And it doesn't really have to be fancy writing, but the quality and the quantity of what students are writing needs to be improved. And it can even be summary writing, but these text boxes provide a place right within the document to summarize, to synthesize, to have these short constructed responses, to reflect, to note take, whatever it is. And I felt like this made such a huge difference. They could still collaborate if possible, but it was amazing. So this really was huge. And I think without the community that you all are building, and I know that soon to come, there'll be a website that we can share besides just on Teachers Give Teachers on Twitter, but I think that this is a big part of it. Have to, you know, give props or thanks to both Lisa and to Ben and to his team awesome, of Carly and Joe and Kelly, who really encourage everybody.
That's so great. Thank you for sharing that story. I was almost getting a little emotional when you were talking about the emotion around Teachers Give Teachers, because it is a very nurturing community for what we think is best for kids. And I love how everybody inspires each other. Let's hop on over here to earn a black belt in Scratch. This is one of your incredible HyperDocs. Could you explain this one to us?
So I don't know that this really qualifies as a HyperDoc, but what I've been trying to do with HyperDocs is really to build autonomy and independence in students. And so this was a way that students were able to control the pace in which they learned. And so they would increase their learning and their knowledge of Scratch by walking through these different levels. And so even though this isn't quite the traditional HyperDoc, I felt like this was a solid example to kind of show, because I think that this needs to kind of be explicitly taught in order for students to make gains and achievements. And so this was a really important kind of first step, because it kind of scaffolded that for students, and it helped teach them how to walk through that. And I think next you're going to share Emily. She actually created one. And you want to talk about your game that you designed?
Yeah, so this was the HyperDoc, was how to improve your skills when creating a design your own game. Those are kind of like the, create your own donut, create your own cupcake, that kind of thing. So it just gradually increased the level of difficulty with each box, and it just got a little harder each time. And it's using Scratch, which was basically block coding. And so first I had to learn how to code using the block coding, and then I had to improve my skills so that I could, challenge other people to create their own game.
Our students to kind of learn at their own pace. And then what this also built capacity, because the students black belt challenges were then given on to younger students.
Oh, that's great. So they were passed on down to the younger students once they, is that what you were saying?
Yes, yeah. So sixth graders actually did several, or more than several, like 10 of the eighth grade games when they did their Scratch unit.
Wow, that's really neat.
I think the packaging, it's so cool to see, Lisa, your packaging, and then to see your students then emulate the same idea and create their own in such an easy to follow, easy, independent, building student agency. I mean, student created content is the ultimate for HyperDocs. It really is. Kind of the highest level that we are hoping to get to ourselves with our classes that we work with.
Yeah, and some of them, they took the whole ninja thing out of it. They created their own little badges. So they did all sorts of things with it, but this was the kind of the heart of what especially the Intro to Computer Science class, was really getting students to have that ability to learn on their own. And of course have support of their classmates and me, but in that Intro to Computer Science class, I wasn't always their best resource. I was learning along with them, coming from an English background. And so, you can do this, and setting that bar super high was important.
Right, right. Such an important thing to model for your students. And we do know that you've been teaching technology, but you've also been an English teacher for many years, right? So would you mind sharing with us your text evidence is boss HyperDoc?
Sure. So next year I will have one section of English, which I'm super excited about, and I'm hoping to really model all of this blended learning and utilizing HyperDocs to a much higher level. And so one of the biggest skills that students coming into my class always needed to use was inserting textual evidence and how to embed it seamlessly. And so my traditional lesson that I've actually presented on for numerous years, since probably like 2007, I felt really good about. But next year, I'm going to go to a whole different kind of level. And I'm not still convinced about this first part of it, but students will see through this HyperDoc, they'll see several different examples, and they'll see the what is strong and weak in the evidence that's provided and the analysis. They'll have embedded video tutorials. They'll have to put textual evidence in their own words. And if you want to just stop here for a second, they talk about, I gave them an option. So I think a huge part of having HyperDocs work is this motivation. And Daniel Pink talks about motivation being in three components: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And HyperDocs really hits two of them really hard. The autonomy, students need to have some choice. And Sean Fahey showed some great examples of some really great choice for culminating activities. And I think that especially when you get to middle school, when students have learned, when they've had twice as many years as Sean's students and twice as many, sometimes 3 times as many teachers. And they've unfortunately had a lot of workbook and worksheet experience, that we need to start small. And it's choice here of if they want to type, or my new favorite tool is this talk and comment. And so students can respond using that talk and comment feature is a really great example. So that's one thing that I think that HyperDocs allow for a lot of choice and autonomy. So if you're not going to give students choice on their text, you can give them choice on how they're going to respond, for one example. So they have an option for some to work on some definitions that wouldn't be possible otherwise, and selecting relevant evidence. So that's just kind of the intro. But then here they're going to really get into leveling up their integration skills. And so I've tried to add some gamification to that. So they're going to read the text, "Thank you, ma'am," which is what I usually do. And I'm going to, what HyperDocs also does is it gives the teacher and the students this ability to have so many exemplars within that are easy for students to access after. So I love that here they can go and they can go back and they can see and they can compare and think, okay, does my analysis, is this going to be just on a newbie level? Is it going to, and I'm going to ask them to evaluate and reflect, what do they think about that particular level? And it's going to gradually increase. And as they get into their own writing, they're going to hopefully work up to the level of craftsman, which would be the highest level, where students are actually introducing evidence. They are having signal words, where they're using strong verbs, and they have a deep level of analysis. And then they're going to discuss here, they'll add to a Padlet, they'll discuss what was the best parts of that, when you effectively integrate evidence, what would be missing if you didn't have a strong verb? What would be missing if you didn't have analysis? So it would be an opportunity to have this archived collaboration here on this Padlet. And then if you haven't seen John Crippo's Iron Chef Challenge, it is an amazing lesson design. So typically when I do this lesson, in the past, it is just on one piece of paper, and 3 students, even though there is a lot of classroom activity, it's not archived. And the end, all 3 students are just submitting this, and they have to wait for my feedback for, at least a day or 2. But here with the Iron Chef Challenge, students are working on a slide deck, and they're going to create this perfect piece of embedded evidence. And what's really cool, and I in the resources page, I put a link to John's lesson, but basically students have to put together this slide, and and other students are evaluating it, and they're going to give feedback, kind of American Idol style. So it's highly motivating. It's kind of like Kendra's Shark Tank activity, because it's you've got this TV aspect. And what's really cool is when students are doing this, the rest of the students are saying, hey, my piece, my writing, we forgot to use a strong verb. So they're quickly working to that mastery level, and more students are going to get there. So it's pretty cool.
Wow, this is really phenomenal. Thanks for sharing, Lisa. I can really, when I'm looking at your lesson design, you're reminding me that one of the things that make HyperDoc special is just the creativity that the teacher gets to have in putting all of their thinking together. And I can see how creative you are by bringing in what you've learned from other people with the Iron Chef Challenge, and even just naming your levels, newbie, apprentice, journeyman. That makes it so fun and interactive for the kids, and it really shows your own personality and your own connection with your students through the HyperDoc design. So thanks for sharing that. It's really neat to see. Shall we move over here to Emily's work now? Emily's
Yes.
Constitution DBQ.
Yeah, so before she starts talking about her DBQs, so the DBQs are a fantastic way for students to get into some text-based documents, but typically they are a 20-page document. And so here we're able to include some things that can't go in a packet. So if you want to talk about.
Yeah, so this was a DBQ from 8th grade that was created and was shared with all the students, and this is where we did our DBQ. Now, thinking back to 6th and 7th grade, we had it in big packets where we had to, write on the paper, and there wasn't a lot of communication with other students. I mean, I gave it over to other people and share, but that just didn't happen. You were filling out your own work and you're using your own thoughts and ideas to write your essay, which it's also good to have other students' input to add to your final essay. And that's what the DBQ that we did in 8th grade definitely had, because we had different links to different, like one of them was Padlet, different places to communicate with other students. And you could definitely share ideas and topics, and that definitely helped to write a stronger essay. And it wasn't just a single idea. There was a lot of communication and teamwork and collaboration with the whole class.
That's fantastic. I think you have your old packet there with you, don't you? Can we see what the DBQ looked like before HyperDocs?
Well, this wasn't the Constitution one. This was just one that happened that I happened to have. But here was a document. The images are in black and white. And then we were able to add videos. And yeah, so, yep.
Right. So Emily, I'm going to screen share again. Do you want to talk us through each slide really quickly and just what you did?
Sure.
Okay, so on the first page here. Oops.
So the first page, there was just a small box where we had to answer some questions. And it was just a basic introduction page. And then on the second one, there was the video. So that also, having the DBQs online and in Google, and as a HyperDoc, you can add videos now, which is definitely a new way to learn, and you can't put a video on a piece of paper, so that wasn't anything that we could use in 6th or 7th grade. It's a new way of learning, and it definitely it opens up more ideas to add, and it definitely helps to understand what you're learning more. You're understanding more, and there's not as much confusion with in the packet as there is on the HyperDocs. And these are just background essay questions that we had to read the background essay, which there was a link, and so we had to open that and then answer the questions. And that was something we could have done on the packet, but then again, it does save space also on HyperDocs.
And it also was a way to differentiate, because many of the students were using Chrome Read and Write. And so it was an opportunity to differentiate too.
That's great. And then this timeline here, did you create this using the draw feature in slides?
Yeah, and let me show you I wonder if I could quickly find the timeline. Maybe I'll come back to it. The timeline is, here's the timeline and the DBQ.
Okay, wait, let me stop screen sharing. There we go.
There we go. This is the time.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit more understanding with the images, and actually NC used that history, the interactive timeline. So that was even better in some of them.
And you touched on something really important as well as differentiating with these HyperDocs. it's a really good idea for teachers to use like Chrome extensions to help with differentiation. And you shared one. Are there any other Chrome extensions that you really like to incorporate when you're using them with your students?
Well, my new favorite one is definitely that talk and comment because, well, first of all, it provides the choice, but then the deeper levels of understanding. I had students doing a podcast unit at the end of the year, and one of the components of their end product, they had to offer a tutorial. And so one student did a tutorial on how to add emotion. And so hers was on anger, and she had an image on anger, and she had an explanation on how to add that voice and life to there. And then she did a little talk and comment where she was actually inserting the voice of that. And it was so cool. I mean, it was just amazing. Like, how awesome.
That's really neat. That's really great.
And then, but I don't know about, those are my two favorites, I think. But the talk and comment is pretty new. But I think that even the flexibility to, to offer, some time management advice. And if you see like something isn't going so well, you can have so much flexibility. My very first one was the one word, which I know there's been so many versions of one word, but I did that back in August, and I just threw it out there to students, and I wanted them to choose a word that would matter. And they quickly just skipped over all of those activities and they started designing in Google Draw, because of course that's the cool part of it. And so I was able to go in instantly and able to scaffold and give them, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to stop, and these are the places that we're going to stop and have some check-ins. And Matt McFarland, he does a great job at having these red icons of where you're going to stop and listen, stop and read, which is so important. And our science teachers, they were having the same problem, and I gave them that advice, pick a color and make it consistent through all of it. But all of this, especially when you get to the high school or middle school or high school level, if you haven't taught these skills, they need to be intentionally taught. You need to, Angela Watson does a fantastic podcast on how to teach student ownership, and she talks about teaching time management explicitly and teaching how students to organize their materials. And so when students in a middle school, especially like at 8 o'clock, they could be doing a worksheet. And then at 9 o'clock, they could be thrown into a 20-time project or a project-based learning. That's jarring. And so you really need to, be mindful about that and how you start and how you slowly kind of release that responsibility. And providing additional structure for some students, not all students the same HyperDoc. And slowly, just like with before when I was teaching writing, slowly those scaffolds can be taken back and capacity is going to be increased. So the flexibility is just amazing, and I think it's going to help a lot.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Emily. I'm wondering, how has learning changed for you from that paper packet to using HyperDocs?
It's changed drastically, really. The actual material that you're learning hasn't changed, but the way you're learning definitely has. Like I said earlier, there's a lot more communication amongst the students in the classroom. There's more opportunities to collaborate, and it's also an easier process, I find. You can't lose the paper unless you delete it from your drive. There's a lot more organization, and you can definitely, the communication is a big thing. You can communicate with teachers from home. You don't have to be at school. It can be late at night, and if they're on the computer and responding to emails, you can collaborate with them, ask them a question, rather than having to wait till the next day when you come in with your packet.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
Wow, such great insight. Thank you both for all of the knowledge that you just shared. I have so many more questions and I have so many more resources to go look at after listening to you, because you really know your stuff. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else that you wanted to highlight today, Lisa, before we wrap it up?
Well, I'm so excited because on June 20th, I am starting your boot camp. And so I'm really hoping that you are going.
Rehearse that.
So on that resources page, I put a link, but I'm hoping that you are going to put out another link about that, because I think that's going to be huge. And I think that, a lot of people have talked about, it's hard to share your stuff. There's even a video out there about, why would I share my stuff? My stuff's not worth it. And that's really me, like that text evidence thing. I have, I sent to the high school department chair, like, is this what you're looking for? I sent to my partner teacher, is this what you're looking for? So that level of insecurity, but I have gotten so much from, history teachers, from math teachers. It doesn't really matter. There's so many people and those ideas just continue to build. So I hope that lots of people take part in this amazing community that you guys are building.
So nice. Thank you. We are looking forward to the online course, which starts on June 20th, and you can sign up at EdTech Team. We'll share a link. We'll share a link for that as well. And obviously we have the HyperDoc Handbook coming out any day now, which we say every week, but it's coming out for sure. And we just really appreciate all the viewers and all the Twitter community and Teachers Give Teachers. And both of you, you were fabulous. Thank you so much for
thank you for coming in on your summer vacation.
Yes.
That's above and beyond.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we will post all of the resources that were talked about in this video later on. Probably by tomorrow, everything will be on the video when you share it. And we will be connecting again soon. We'll see everybody else next Tuesday, where we have Heather Marshall as our guest for our Tuesday lunch break chit chat, of another fan favorite of HyperDocs. And we look forward to seeing everybody next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.